Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Regional Wastewater Reclamation Advisory Committee meeting of June 22nd, 2023. Let's see. We have quorum, I understand.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
And just, I'm sorry to interrupt, Scott, but
Yeah.
we just have a quorum of 7. So if anybody goes to the bathroom, we're going to hold and wait. So just be aware.
And I will, as usual, I'll try and go through this as fast as I can. Just want to remind everybody to please mute your microphones. This will ensure we do not have any feedback or other background noise to interfere with the speaker. If a committee member would like to ask a question, please use the raise your hand feature. Please remember to lower your hand once the question has been addressed. When you are ready to speak, please unmute your microphone. This is especially important during votes. Don't forget to mute yourself when you're finished. As a reminder, audience members are only permitted to speak during the call to the audience, unless called upon by the committee. This meeting is being recorded to satisfy the open meeting law requirements. Okay, let's have a call to order and roll call.
All right. Let's see. We have Anne Marie,
Here.
Armando,
Presente.
Blair Zucker, Craig, Rob,
Here.
Scott,
Here.
and Steve. Is there anybody I missed? Is there anybody I missed?
Okay.
I think
We have
Jeff
our
next
7.
up.
Everybody's going to hold themselves, and we'll get through this quickly. Let's have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we have a call to the audience, I just wanted to let the people that came here in attendance, we have Girl Scout cookies in the back for any of those people that are famished. So the people that couldn't make it today virtually, you're just going to have to savor the flavors of the different varieties of Girl Scout cookies that we have here. Let's see, call to the audience. Does anybody have anything to say at call to the audience? Okay, seeing none. Next on the agenda is a safety share. Does anyone have a safety share? I'll just jump in. My standard routine for summer, I always have that cold bottle of water sitting in the refrigerator or wherever, and before I go driving anywhere, I take that bottle of water with me. And our routine is always putting the sunscreen up on the car. So just be aware of the heat. Just have to worry about heat. Jackson, you had one?
Yeah, just it's the same thing. I think we're going to hit the 110-degree days coming up in the next few days. And please mute your microphone if you're not speaking, just to help with reverberatory sounds. At any rate, I had a family, a 16-year-old girl, a 14-year-old boy, and their dad. They went hiking in the national forest behind my house, and I happened to watch them, from my observation area up there in the morning early on Saturday. And I was looking at wildlife, and I'm watching them, and I'm like, boy, they sure each had one water bottle with them, and they hiked a long way already, and some pretty rigorous hiking. And luckily, I knew who it was, and so I didn't have their phone number, but I emailed the mom who wasn't there, and she got a hold of them because I was concerned. But they just kept going, and they're new to Arizona. They moved here into my neighborhood about 9 months ago from North Carolina. At any rate, they went in a bit too far and ran out of water. It gets warm quickly in the summer, and I spent the better part of my day trying to hike to them to bring them more water, but I was going to be a victim myself if I kept going to catch up to them. And so we ended up getting DPS helicopter and airlifted them out because they couldn't make it out when all was said and done. So again, overzealous people, hey, we're going to go do this, but you know, it turns bad very quickly, and they don't realize how much water you need and how hot it gets, and especially people that aren't familiar with where they're at. So anyway, just right along the
And that keeps
summer.
that keeps the Sarah people, Southern Arizona Rescue Association, which I was belonging to at one time. That's what keeps everybody busy. We used to pull so many people out of the mountains here.
I told the guy, I just met him. I met his wife and kids earlier, but I just met him, and I told him, you know, it was Father's Day weekend, and I said, you know, for Father's Day weekend, I had a phone call with my kids. You're an overachiever. You had a helicopter ride for your kids. So
Are there any more safety shares?
Yeah, on that
Okay.
same note, I live next to Tucson Mountain Park, and I make it a habit now to bring an extra water bottle with me when I go hiking, because there are a lot of wildcat trails out there, and people from the Star Pass Resort, once again, they're new here, they don't know what they're doing, and they start hiking without water or with a tiny little water bottle, and we've rescued people at least 3 times. So yeah, if you can do it, take an extra water bottle if you're going out hiking.
Very good. Thank you, Rob. Any other safety shares? Okay, yeah, that's it for safety shares. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of May 25, 2023. Hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to review it. Are there any amendments or corrections or anything like that?
Yeah, I had one question. In the notes, it said both Claire and Scott were candidates for chair next year. Is that correct?
That is correct.
yeah, it's an agenda item to talk about election of officers. So we'll have that discussion shortly.
Oh, okay, thanks. Then I move we approve the minute.
Do I have a second? Claire Zucker is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstains?
I'm abstaining because I wasn't here.
Same here, abstained, Rob.
Thank you both. Okay, then we have majority rules. All in favor, say aye. Oh, we already did that, so it so passes of May 25th, 2023 meeting minutes. Next on the agenda is our director's update from Jackson. All yours.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. And I will bring up that we now have an 8th person to our quorum, so you may now go to the restroom if you need to, but only one at a time. All right. So just real quickly, a few topics of interest, maybe. Just, you know, we've been in discussions with the town of Sarita for a couple of 2 or 3 years, Eric, maybe. And as we've been in our long range planning, look at a potential regional facility out in the town of Sahuarita, Pima County boundaries, shared areas over there, actually near Old Nogales Highway and Pima Mine Road. We've talked about some potential partnerships and their needs and our needs. And ultimately, I've also reached out to the Indian Nation over there to potentially help in some of their future plans, and I'm still waiting to match up with them for a more detailed discussion. But just recently, within the last few weeks or month or so, we signed an MOU with the town of Sarita that basically says we're going to work in good faith to determine if and how and when and where we move forward with a partnership. And we kind of gave ourselves 1 year to do it. It's an MOU, so it's not binding, but it's just giving both respective jurisdictions confirmation that, yeah, we're serious about looking at the options and possibilities. And if it makes sense for both of us, that's the way we're headed. So I just wanted to make sure you guys know about it. And of course, it's an obvious agenda item for this group as we have some meaningful discussions. And, you know, we've been doing some studies in the background. They've been doing some studies. And I think we just finished some work up with Carollo engineers just recently that we'll be discussing with the town. And, you know, so again, just continuing the process and continuing that 1-year MOU to try and get to a point where we can make it a mutually beneficial decision for everybody. So FYI,
MOU.
memorandum of understanding. Thank you. Okay. Thanks for asking though. Staffing, I always leave staffing on the agenda. It seems like, I don't know, maybe the hamster wheel, you run as fast as you want, but you're not going to get too far. We seem to take a couple steps forward, but 1+ steps back all at the same time. So it's just frustrating to, you know, in this period of time, and not just for wastewater, but for Pima County and probably many employers all across the country, just keeping enough staffing is a challenge. We actually have decreased the number of vacancies. We've been as high as 40, you know, which is about 10% vacancies. But right now, I think we're around 26 or 28, so maybe closer to 7% vacancy. We still, and ever since the pandemic occurred, you know, we used to have 10% absenteeism for people being off for vacation, for sick, for military, bereavement, or sometimes people just don't want to show up to work and they don't have any reason. They just don't show up. Anyway, that's been running about 13%, you know, when it used to be 10%. And so that's a 30% increase, you know, over a relatively short time frame. So those all, you know, pose challenges. But I would say the biggest one staffing wise is, you know, you never know what the demographics of people leaving, whether it's for, you know, we had, you know, somebody leave because their spouse works for Border Patrol and they had to go move to a different location in another state. So they left and moved with their spouse. And other people, we had 2 longtime employees that they forgot about certain rules, some serious important rules, and they are no longer with us, and they'd been longtime employees. So it was unfortunate and a surprise. The worst part though is we're having a lot of retirements, and I've said that in some previous meetings. I think I mentioned I'm pretty tired and sick and tired of retirement cake, but you know, it's just the demographics we have. We have a lot of institutional knowledge going out the door, and you know, people talk about the silver tsunami and that impact. Well, we're living it, and yeah, there's good people, but there's a learning curve. There's a lot of dynamics that go into those turnovers that you have to deal with and keep this operation running with all the criteria and all the complications. So I just like misery loves company. So I'm sharing with you all, but we're still keeping our head above water and we're still doing well. So that's accolades to the staff that work here, but definitely one of our bigger challenges. Sure.
There was a discussion of sweeping some of the long-term vacancies into other projects.
Mm-hmm.
Are you working with the administration internally to justify some of those particularly longer held open positions, which may be engineers or specialty positions?
So it's like we rehearsed, Claire. That's a perfect question. So first, the county just rather recently, I'm going to say the past few months or so ago, they did a sweep of any position that had been vacant for a year or more. And I don't recall, I don't know if anyone here or on the phone, on the Teams meeting from finance, Ellen, I see Ellen's on there. She might know the answer, but the county swept those year-plus-old positions. And Ellen, do you know approximately how many positions from the entire county got eliminated or removed from during that effort?
Jackson, no, I don't have that at my fingertips. I am in the car right now. I'll be happy to get that for you when I get into
Okay.
the office.
Yeah, no problem. It just would help in my response to Claire, but thanks though. So at least from a wastewater perspective, we had 2 positions out of our 401. We had 2, you know, and again, we have vacancies too, but 2 of those vacancies were over a year old and they were removed against my begging and pleading. But at the end, I was able to trade 2 other positions because they were very, very critical positions, and we filled them both now, as a matter of fact. But yeah, I heard at the board they were even looking, hey, what about 6-month-old positions? Right now, we do not have any positions more than 6 months old. We have some that are approaching 6 months, but none of ours are 6 months or older at this moment. But ask me next week or next month, that might change, depending on how that time goes. But, just my own personal editorial, there's reasons why, we work for a big county and there's a lot of moving parts and coordinations. And so you understand some of those decisions get made, but I didn't agree with it at all. From my perspective, it was tough because we used to, back, I think it was maybe 2007 was our peak year. We had 597 employees in wastewater. And now we have, counting those 2 that got swept, we're now at 399 budgeted positions. So that's a pretty, and that's just how we do our business. We look at right sizing all the time. We look at efficiencies. And so to have some of these mandates come down, it's frustrating, but that's what we have to do sometimes. And you play the cards you're dealt, and that's what we were dealt. But hopefully that won't impact us going forward. But I'll put up a good argument if it does. But we have to do what we have to do. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I feel better for this therapeutic opportunity. So
That was interesting and it was voted down. But yeah.
yeah, well, every department has their own situation, and I can't speak for others. But all right, we good with that one? My next item was compensation study, just because I've brought it up here in the past. The county's still moving forward with rolling out phase 1 of the compensation study. The study's been rolled out and distributed to all the departments, and each department has had a chance to review that list of the changes. And again, the county went from over 100 pay grades, to, I believe now 26 is the new number. And so everybody's going to transition in phase 1 into the new pay grade structure. So if you were a grade 77 in the old system, or one of the many alpha numeric codes or something, you're either going to be a 1 through a 26 period. That's the new system. And with that, in phase 1, once everybody's titles are updated, where some titles will stay exactly the same and some will change to fit in with the 26 grades. Anybody that is not at least at the minimum of the grade they're in, they will be brought up to the minimum as part of phase 1. The last update I had heard is that will occur in July. And again, that's just old information. And Ellen, I'm sorry you're driving and having to talk, but is July still, to the best of your awareness, the target date for that phase 1 implementation?
July 11th is the date where we expect HR to go to the board with the proposal.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that it would be implemented in July. It might be implemented in August. I really don't have a timeline on when the implementation will be, but the plan right now is to present to the board the new pay grades and the new hierarchy architecture of the class and comp study.
Thank you. So, we've received our first pass, and this is a very dynamic and very challenging process, because the firm CBiz is who was contracted to do the study for the county. They were given a snapshot of the county's compensation package back from August of 22. Well, now we're in June of 23, and many changes. People have left, new people have come, people have been promoted, people have changed jobs. So we took the information, it was recently updated to hopefully align with June now and take all those changes into account. And my executive team and I reviewed that data. In fact, we're having a discussion later today on that topic. And we believe that we're about, from our prior edits and recommendations, about 90% of the outcome is pretty reasonable, we think, which is a big, positive outcome because there's so many moving parts in doing this transition. But the 10% that still are not there, we have tomorrow, Friday, the deadline to resubmit any final last minute changes before ultimately the county will roll out and make the recommendation to the board, probably as Ellen said, maybe on July 11th. So we'll get one last pass at it to try and get as close to 100% in agreement when you make these changes. Of course, there's market evaluations that CBIZ does, so we just have to align with that. But sometimes your hierarchical structure changes and shifts, and it can create other negative outcomes if it's not done right. So we just want to make sure we cover any gross anomalies and try and fix them as we go to this change. So iterate, that's just the latest on that study. And then after phase 1 is complete, then the county, I think, will move into phase 2 over a time frame where you look at, now that everybody's in their new grade, where should they ultimately be placed on 0 to 100% of the pay grade range. So should they be at the entry? Should they be at the midpoint? Should they be higher than that? And those criteria will be spelled out and looked at, because that one will probably have the bigger financial impact on the county. And then discussions about how it's funded and all that will take place. So phase 2 is going to be a bigger, probably more important and larger undertaking, but that will be, my guess, during next fiscal year. And then some rollout plan will have to follow. So that's it on the update on the compensation study. Just for diversity of topics, I put Mount Lemmon on here. We've been, working up on the Mount Lemmon area. We discharge our effluent in the national forest up there. We have a spray field. We keep I don't know how big area it is. Jeff, do you remember? Is that 2, 3, 5 acres, something like that? Yeah, it's not a big footprint, but we have a spray field that we irrigate pine trees and ferns and lush vegetation up there. And that Forest Service permit has expired, and they've told us that, hey, due to their rules that they don't want waste discharged on their forest property, we got to stop discharging waste up there. So that set me back a little bit, and I said, time out. Don't you dare call our effluent waste. People are fighting for it down here. It's not waste. And so at least we now have them thinking, well, yeah, we have some other delineations like beneficial for wildlife and other things that they'll look at. So maybe we'll get them to look at it differently, and it'll be a non-issue and we can get a renewal. But we are meeting with them and we're having discussions. But they asked us to look at any and all options, and we've come up with quite a few, and pretty much none of them are very good options. But one extreme option will be, well, if we can't discharge, we're going to shut down our wastewater plant. Another option is complete opposite and say, well, let's take our effluent and make drinking water out of it and add it to the drinking water up there. That would be one of those direct potable reuse opportunities for a small population up on the mountain. And then there's a lot of other places where you could do recharge on private property, but then you're going to have to put a mile or 2 or 3 long pipeline across forest property to get there. And so it's going to be interesting, those conversations, and obviously it'll be an agenda item. Also, we'll put on this team as we get into some of those discussions with the Forest Service. We'll let you know what we come up with and where we're headed. So FYI. I think I mentioned this before, but every day I have new friends because I forgot who the old ones were. But Finger Rock was the flood area in the Catalina Mountains that flooded earlier, and it did flood control damage and some drainage in the Finger Rock area. It did some road damage, and it did some wastewater infrastructure damage. We spent about $1.7 million earlier this year, fixing the wastewater damage, which is now complete, and that's all back in business. But flood control and roads, I think, are still doing some work over there. But we were reimbursed, I think, 1.4 million of the 1.7. We didn't plan on that expenditure. It was an emergency expenditure, but much of it was reimbursed to us in that, I don't know, where did that money come from, Marla? Was that
It's Department of Forest Management.
the forest?
Yeah, that's it.
No wonder they want us off their property. Now that makes sense. They're mad. At any rate, we got most of that cost reimbursed, but I just wanted to remind you that was an unexpected expense that we had this year. Finally, Canoa Ranch is just another project. It's been my lifelong ambition to shut down all of our lagoons. You know, we have treatment plants all over, but we've had 3 lagoons. One was what's the name of the one that we gave to Marana? Rito Vista. We gave that when Marana took over the Marana plant. We gave them the Rito Vista Lagoon, and we've since shut down the fairgrounds. That one's closed, and we've been hoping to get the Canoa, the Arivaca Junction facility closed down by connecting it to Green Valley. And it's also where the Canoa Ranch project is that the county has out there, the restoration of the Canoa Ranch. And they've been putting an RV park at the Canoa Ranch for people to camp and stuff over there. And we're looking at, you know, we have to extend our sewer line to tie them in, but we've ran into some issues in how to extend that sewer line along the east side frontage of Interstate 19. And based on those challenges and costs, we're ultimately probably going to have to put that line on the west side of the interstate. Not a big deal, but it's just, you know, you think, hey, that's the simplest way, and you wonder, well, why don't you do that? Well, there's 404 permits and federal delays that could take years that say, hey, put it on the west side, we'll save a lot more time, and they can just, you know, cross underneath the interstate to get over to it. So that was just one that we've been talking about recently, so I threw it on my list here. But those are my update topics. Any questions on any of those? Okay, thank you.
Okay, one last opportunity again to ask Jackson any questions about his update.
I have a question.
Okay, I can't see you on the screen.
It's Kimberly. With Jackson's last comment about, was it primarily 404 issues that caused the change in location for that pipeline?
Well, so first we were going to try and stay along the frontage road in the ADOT right of way, but based on the topography and their criteria for being along their frontage road, we were going to have to do some expensive earthworks and adding several $1 million to the cost of the project, to where we said, no, let's just cut across the Canoa Ranch property to stay out of the ADOT right away. And when you go across, the disturbance you'd make across the Canoa Ranch property triggers a number of federal criteria that will add significant time to the project that isn't amenable to get all that done very well. So originally, even before the RV park at Canoa Ranch, we were looking at the west side of the interstate on the frontage road on the west side. And we were trying to work with a developer over there, but the development slowed down. They weren't moving forward with any projects. And so we ran into some delays there with some moratoriums on a water line that got put in over on that side. But now that time has passed, and ultimately it's the least expensive and the fastest way and an acceptable way to deliver sewer service out to that end. So that's kind of where we've ultimately ended up and where we're headed. But I don't know if Kim, if that answered your question or not.
It does, and I just wanted to bring up the recent Supreme Court decision on Clean Water Act jurisdiction and pretty much ephemeral washes as what would be what you cross along there. They're no longer under federal jurisdiction. So I was just curious. And you know, it has changed so much in the last years, but I think that with this latest June decision, things may be stable for much longer than they have been in the past, I don't know, decade or so.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kimberly. Any other last minute questions for Jackson on his update? Okay, not hearing any. We're going to go next on the agenda is to our CRAO Compliance and Regulatory Affairs Office update from Max. Max, it's up to you.
One second.
Yes, please. Make my notes bigger. All right, everyone can see that, correct? Great. Okay, well, good morning, everybody. My name is Max DeSante. I had the honor of presenting for you last year. I believe it was a little later just because of timing, maybe in September. So we're a really kind of steady as she goes unit, CRAO. As long as things are going smoothly, we anticipate few changes, but as our projects continue to grow and continue to evolve, we'll have a lot of updates of new developments within this last year. So then kind of what is CRAO, Compliance Regulatory Affairs? Simply, we provide technical support and assistance for RWRD to stay within compliance for federal, state, and local regulations. We manage about 30 plus environmental permits, and reminder, those are just dealing with the wastewater treatment plants, with stormwater recharge, anything that deals with discharge authorizations or construction permits are typically handled individually by technical services or conveyance as they need them. And for those that are here, know where we're located, but those online, we're at the water campus that's at I-10 and Camino del Cerro. Okay, there we go. Just starting off with our organizational chart and where we are. So we have our director Jackson, our 3 deputy directors, Eric, Jeff, and Jaime. CRAO sits within the Technical Services and Engineering Division. And the main units there are admin, field engineering, engineering services, and then we have CRAO. And then CRAO is built of 5 individual groups. First, we have our permitting team led by Ms. Kimberly Baeza. And they, again, manage the permits issued to us by other entities. So we are both permittees and permitters. Our permitting and water quality group handles where we are the permittees. So they also help track the production and use of effluent and storage credits and ensure that our wells are maintained. Next, we have our data management unit, which is led by Tanya Weber. She is one of our most recent promotions, and actually her official first day was here at the beginning of June. She's a promotion from within our laboratory, coming from the quality assurance and quality control unit within the lab. So very used to looking at data and reports and qualifiers and all that. In general, the data management unit, also DMU, is they ensure that all data is reported on time to ADEQ, that is legally defensible and in accordance with all the permits. They do also assist with reporting issues to the state if there's a permit limit we don't meet or any other issue like that. And then they also assist with preparation for facility inspections. Next, our industrial wastewater control, or our pre-treatment unit, is led by Mr. Steve King. Now, this is a requirement for a ZIPDs permits. Because we have certain type of industry in town, our ZIPDs permits define that we must have a pre-treatment program according to 40 CFR Part 403. And this is designed to help protect the publicly owned treatment works. So helping prevent the contaminants and pollutants that get to the treatment plants. And this is the unit that issues permits to other entities. Next, we have our compliance laboratory. It's a state-of-the-art lab with approximately 30 employees, and they ensure that all sample analyses are handled according to EPA-approved methodology and that everything is analyzed in a scientifically sound manner. And that lab is led by Janelle Kraft. And last but certainly not least, we have our admin team. They are the glue that holds us together. They assist with functions like equipment orders, contract management, budget, and so much more. I mean, they really make all the gears work well oiled together. So I'll start off going into some of our administration roles and projects. Again, what they do for us is provide the administrative, financial, and procurement services. That includes financial services, procurement services, day-to-day operations. Within financial, they help manage the annual budget for 5 units. They help with monthly forecasting, with purchases, expenditures, and analysis. And they also help with the IWC discharge billing and permit fees. They help with procurement services as far as contracts for product and service agreements for the lab, IWC data management, and well repairs. And that includes obtaining quotes, managing the contracts and payment of those POs and DOs. And they also help manage the Creo warehouse, which we have a small warehouse that orders lots of safety supplies, laboratory supplies, et cetera, and they just keep that stocked and maintained. And then as far as day-to-day operations, that's building maintenance, groundskeeping, service requests for building issues, if a toilet goes out or a sink needs fixed. And then they also help with other types of reports, documents, and travel requests, and they are our certified EEOs, or Equal Employment Opportunity Officers, that assist for interviews, which, as Jackson mentioned, we're having quite a few of lately, just to make sure that that whole interview process is fair. For those who've joined us recently, you can see at the front we have two new features. We have a PowerPoint that runs on the TV up there, and that's updated weekly. And within the PowerPoint, we have all sorts of informations of events, trainings, meetings, parties, and the date and time that those are going to happen. We like to highlight different programs that are held by different units. So during the months following our annual Grease campaign, we had several slides designated to that, just to let those who come and visit kind of know what we're about. And then other topics, other announcements, new hires, promotions, etc. And then you can also see the little swiped on tablet there. That is our new way of having people check in and log in. They prints out a nice name tag for them, and is a simple way of keeping track of who is coming and going, better than an old sign-in sheet, at least digitally. Of course, certain people still prefer the old methods, but we gotta progress. Next, I'll highlight our data management unit. So again, data management unit, or DMU, is a central hub between the Creo laboratory, industrial wastewater control, and our sub-regional facilities, which is Green Valley, Avra Valley, Corona de Tucson, Arivaca Junction, and Mount Lemmon. And then our 2 main regional facilities, which is Tres Rios and Agua Nueva. And they are responsible for compiling all of the data, communication, organization of chains of custody, and all that, and reporting that information to ADEQ. So there's a lot of compliance information. They have to report by the 28th of each month under certain structures of certain timelines. So we have monthlies, we have quarterlies, semi-annual, and annual reporting that all comprise of different types of tests to be performed at different times within that calendar. And then the other item they do that assists them in performing this role is the administration of our LIMS, our Laboratory Information Management System. which I had some pictures from last year. I didn't include this year, but it's a database that is essential in organizing all of this information. So this year, I pulled some numbers from some of our KPIs, and it is a little deceiving because I made this presentation at the beginning of June, so it didn't include the June numbers, which is a big month. So in the fiscal year 22 to 23, we had 39,547 individual parameters reported to ADEQ. We had 7 total contingencies, which again, unfortunately, that is if there's an issue where we didn't meet a permit limit or we detected bacteria in effluent. Those have their own rules to be dealt with and managed and resolved with the state. So of course, we always follow those. And then in this time, we also had 2 APP inspections, that's Aquifer Protection Program, and 3 AZIPTES inspections. And some of those are at the same facility. So I think at Tres Rios, we had both an APP and an AZIPTES inspection at different times of the year. And then, as I said earlier, they also help track plant flows, effluent recharge, reclaim, on-site reuse, and off-site reuse, and more. It always just increases. And I wanted to provide a couple pages from one of our recent AZIPTES inspection just to show what they are like. This is an example of their pre-inspection checklists. And this was for our Tres Rios AZIPTES inspection. Now on the left, you can see they tell you what are some common deficiencies that they'll identify. And they send this to you a week or 2 in advance. And this is kind of a, hey, this is your last chance to get your stuff together before we come and write you up for it. And then on the right is a pre-inspection checklist, which you can kind of see at the top, maybe a little small, but these are the things they're going to ask for in person. Their signed aquifer protection permit, operator and maintenance Q&M manuals, 10 years of records, and they want, etc. There's a lot more things, obviously. They want all of this ready when they arrive. They want to see it in person, they want to flip through it, then they want to check it out. So this is part of the pre-inspection information. Now here's from our actual inspection report. On the left is a map of Tres Rios, and there's 17 different buildings highlighted. Those are the ones they actually visited during that inspection. And those are referenced later in the photo log and in the other parts of the inspection log. On the right are just some examples. On the top is a picture of the SCADA, and on the bottom right is a picture of the emergency overflow basin and some blurbs that they write about it. Here on the left, we have our mechanical bar screen on top, and then on the bottom, a view of the influent pump station. And then on the right, there's the picture of the outfall. And I wanted to highlight this one specifically so you can see as it cascades down the rocks, it's a little foamy. And I mean, that's kind of some natural churn action as happens. But they noted this, and I will say that this inspection was performed by contractors. They flew out PG Environmental from Colorado, who performed an inspection. And anytime you have something like this performed by a contractor, they're paid to find things. That is always, auditors find things anyways, but especially paid ones, they got to tell ADEQ that they're worth their buck. So they noted this as a potential deficiency because there is part, within the regulations, you're not supposed to discharge foam. Well, ADEQ came back after the fact. They came out in April of this year for the inspection, and they looked at only foam. They didn't do an entire new inspection of the whole facility. And all 4 of these photos are from the ADEQ inspector. And you can kind of see some foam in the bottom left after it has gone through the weir, the partial flume. And there's some churning in action, but in all the other photos, especially the ones from the river, there's no foam. So they found it, ADEQ found it to be no deficiency and sent us a revised report without that included. Switching notes to our industrial wastewater control section. Now, IWC, again, it's a pretreatment program is a requirement of our ZIPD's permits. Their primary responsibility is to implement the National Pretreatment Program as codified in 40 CFR Part 403. And it's to prevent the pollutants which will interfere with the publicly owned treatment works. We certainly do not want any sort of plant upset. It's to prevent pollutants which will pass through the publicly owned treatment works. So I like highlighting an interesting example that's becoming very relevant for us is selenium. That has in our latest round of ZIPD's permits, that has showed up as a limit with 2 parts per billion for both Tres Rios and Agua Nueva, because though it never exceeded this limit, every time you go through a permit renewal, you send them lists of, years and years of data, and they run some calculations, and they found that, well, 2 ppb, I think we had some detections at 1.6 or so. And 2 pp is the limit for aquatic and wildlife effluent dependent water, of which the Santa Cruz is categorized. So our limit in our permits is now 2 ppb, and the limit for drinking water is 50 ppb. So the city of Tucson is allowed to discharge significantly higher concentrations of selenium from their wells, of which they've detected above 2. Throughout this last year, I looked at their 2022 water quality report, and it has detections as high as 2.4 parts per billion. So we're already approaching an interesting point of, well, if we're receiving water that the treatment plants are not designed to treat, how do we really accomplish this? Now, the pretreatment program is technically there to do it, but if you're talking about water that's coming from residents, coming from everywhere in Tucson, that's going to be an interesting goal and something we've already been talking to ADEQ about. And then finally, they also exist to improve opportunities for reclaim and reuse of both wastewater and sludge. It kind of goes without saying, if your goal is to make a cleaner end product, it's easier to start with a cleaner initial product. So this is also becoming a point of interest with PFAS and other emerging contaminants, and how do you manage treating for it on the end? Well, I guess it's probably easier to treat for it at the beginning. And then we accomplish these goals because we inspect, we permit, and we regulate. And those are our 3 main ways of enforcement through IWC. Our 3 primary areas of focus are categorical industrial users. These are defined as a facility that discharges processed wastewater to the POTW, whose industrial activities are regulated by one or more of the federal regulations as point source categories as listed in 40 CFR parts 405 through 471. Okay, 405 through 471 are, again, these federally defined industries that were identified as the most likely to pollute. Anything from steelworks to battery manufacturers to aluminum forming and metal refinery. Those all have an individually assigned category and federally defined limits and pollutants of concern. So you kind of go off of a template there if your industry has one of those. And those, it's CIUs really that are the big focus for preventing pollutants in the sewer. Next, you have a significant industrial users. That's also defined as any CIU is automatically an SIU, but also any user that discharges 25,000 gallons per day, contributes greater than 5% of the dry weather hydraulic capacity or the organic capacity of the plant, or is designated as such due to reasonable potential for disruption of plant operation. And these are ones that we identify by our inspections and our pre-permitting or other types we get there, because they may not be a a federally defined category, but boy, if they check one of these other boxes, we need to know about them. We need to visit them regularly. And then finally, our food service establishments. That is a restaurant, cafeteria, lunchroom, food stand, saloon, tavern, bar, lounge, or other similar facility. The main focus of the FSEs is preventing fatbergs or other items within the sewer system that are likely to cause SSOs. So grease, oily and greasy food material. And then I have a couple more photos here. All these photos that have been sliding by are real and photos from our inspection team. I pulled all of these. These are all within the last year. So fun, interesting. And then, in the back, you can't see, in the back of that hood, it says no mouth pipetting. So yeah, they make bulbs to pull liquid through the pipette anymore. This is a biohazard left and right. So yeah, please don't do that. And then our favorite, this is the yellow-bellied sump sucker. That's a big kind of vector equipment. I think this is that. I can't remember the name. But one interesting note, we always have to keep in mind of new businesses coming into town, new industries that we might have to permit. We do have a couple interesting items we'll have to keep aware of in the next year. One is, it's no secret, but the American Battery Factory is looking to move into town. You can read news articles about it. And then the other one is the casino and hotel at Grant and I-10 as part of the Pasquayaqui tribe. So that involves its own interesting difficulties, as that no longer, that becomes tribal land now. How do we permit and regulate them? Another fun item for IWC is that we recently upgraded from our IPAX 2.0 software to 5.0. That stands for Permitting and Compliance Software. So the laboratory has their database that helps manage all the analyses and results. The pretreatment program has this database that helps us manage all of our permitted entities for reporting timelines, permit renewals, inspections, and all that fun stuff. The IPAX 2.0 product was aging out. In order to run the software, we had to use specific versions of Internet Explorer, not Chrome, not Firefox. It had to be Internet Explorer with certain browser add-ons, with certain things turned off and on. And anytime you're starting to go into that territory to run a program, you're worried that one day it's not going to work. Especially with being part of a county entity, everything is about update, update, update. You got to run in the latest version of this software or that operating system, and it gets scary. So it was not a smooth transition. It took well over a year before really going live. We did that earlier this year, and so far seems to be going very well. And the next step will be putting in place the Gov Online and e-submittal of reports, documents, and lab data that will allow our permittees to send in results. Current EPA requirements, is that wet signatures are required. So people have to mail in their reports or come in and drop them off. And part of this is in order to use Gov Online and e-submittals, you have to be Chrome Air compliant. And that is a long process to get approved. So I have a couple pictures here of just, this is our dashboard that helps track tasks and what needs to be performed. It has all sorts of fun categories that we can use. You can see some of them are hearted. They must be favorited and used often. And this is just an example of, you can see permit type, permit status, issue date, effective date, and all that is in there for some of our permittees. So a very useful type of software. Here's an update of our 18th annual grease collection event. So we had 5 sites around Tucson. This is down from 6 sites last year. In October or so, Grease Cycle, the company that takes the oil, asked us to move the event later by 1 week. So thankfully, this was before all of the hard paper advertisements had been sent out, like the bill inserts. It was like 3 days before. Is typically this event is always the first Saturday of January. So as a result of having to move the time back 1 week, Keno Sports Park, which is one of our locations, couldn't accommodate the new date. So we had to scrap that site, unfortunately. We had 35 employee or volunteers, excuse me, that was the same as last year, but last year was only 27 county employees. So we had good county support. We also had a member from Board of Supervisor Rex Scott's team who volunteered to be a site captain. And the event was held for 4 hours. And we tallied 326 drop-offs, which is down from 440 last year, and 6,200 pounds of grease, which is down from 8,100 last year. So a little bit slower of a year, but we did have one less site, and I have a graph later, and you can see it does kind of cycle in and out. We love data, so we made an advertising breakdown, and you can see that repeat and bill inserts are certainly the highest percentage of reports, and every person who comes and drop off, we just ask them how they heard about us. And the other ones that are still good, internet, Facebook, TV, newspapers, I think those ones start to get pricey. So maybe we'll use this to decide how we want to advertise for next year. On the left is the tally of each site that had drop-offs, and you can see that was 815 gallons or 6,100 pounds. I may have said 6,200 earlier, but maybe it's a rounding issue. And then on the right, this is the total in pounds year by year. So you can see it kind of cycles up and down and up and down. And sometimes someone will come by with 60 pounds of grease and say, "Oh yeah, I've been saving it for 2 years." It gets funky long before then. So prefer they came every year instead. And then SSOs going all the way back to 2000. You can see there were 250, and that has steadily declined this so far fiscal year 22-23. There were 24, with 3 of them being grease-related SSOs, and part of it, sure, is programs like this to educate the public, but a huge part of it, of course, is our conveyance team's aggressive maintenance schedule. And just to put numbers into this, the national average is, according to Google, is 4.5 SSOs per 100 miles of conveyance, or 28.2 SSOs per 100,000 people. That's the national average. With our numbers here, this puts it at 0.686 SSOs per 100 miles using 3,500 miles of conveyance that we have, and only 2.3 SSOs per 100,000 people. So we are well below the national average of SSOs. I highlight our Creo laboratory next. So the Creo lab is licensed by the Arizona Department of Health Services. They operate 365 days a year, and they're organized into 4 units: microbiology, inorganic chemistry, organic chemistry, and quality assurance. And it does look a little lopsided here, with the microbiology unit doing over 21,000 analyses and organic doing just over 1,000, but they are very different types of analyses, but I would probably say that the bread and butter of the lab is the microbiology unit. Without them doing their solids and bacteria tests, those are among the most important for a wastewater treatment plant to operate. And the quality assurance unit doesn't do analyses themselves, but they really review and assist with SOPs and quality assurance manual updates and safety checks and so many other items. And in fiscal year, I think that should be, fiscal year 22-23, that should be updated to, we had over 6,300 training hours across the lab, and that relates to approximately 4 hours per person per week. Part of that is just attributed to turnover and new people, but also as people become senior within their unit, they get to expand, and maybe somebody in microbiology learns some analyses in the inorganic chemistry unit. And then the lab also helps with working on special projects. So for example, right now there's a special project going on about optimizing blowers at Green Valley and seeing how we can change there. And that requires extra analyses. So the lab helps for those types of things in addition to the compliance work. In the last year, it looks like, or the organic unit did 24 special project analyses, micro did 40, and the inorganic unit did 251. Because there's a lot of ammonias and nitrogens and those things you're interested there in the special projects. This is of course, I have to update. Every year in April is National Environmental Laboratory Professionals Week. So this is the picture from this year. We had a nice big barbecue on Wednesday, sponsored by Janelle and me for the whole building. And we had burgers and hot dogs and all sides, all sorts of fun stuff. And here's some staff lab members. Updating for wastewater surveillance. Here is the last year of for Tres Rios. And then here's Agua Nueva. And then here's Green Valley. There was a communication issue in Green Valley between July and about October of last year, where they weren't getting their sample materials, and we got that organized and fixed. So the question is, well, what's happening next with wastewater surveillance? Because everybody knows that COVID-19 is over, according to as of May 11th. So, well, what do we do next? Well, it's still a very useful tool, because the crucial parts is it doesn't rely on people going to a hospital or being diagnosed. It will be detected at the wastewater treatment plant no matter what. So the federal contract with the CDC and BioBot we've been using ends either at the end of June or sometime in the middle of July. So they're transitioning from federally contracted work with BioBot to states using their own individual public health labs. And so since beginning of June, we've been doing all analyses in duplicate. So again, using the state public health lab that's run by Arizona Department of Health Services. So we've been sending samples to both so that they can get side by side. And there's all sorts of other targets that you can use. Of course, monkeypox is one that the state is currently trying, but finding it difficult right now. And then other emerging viruses as they come. I think they have norovirus on there. I think there were 20 plus other types of viruses that they want to look at. Opiates is a tender subject, of course, but could be very important down the road as if the problem continues to get worse. I know that they're concerned about making it seem like they're targeting a certain population of people, though. And then another item that they've been talking about is collecting samples throughout the collection system as opposed to just at the treatment plants, so that you can really get more of a map of where are your hot spots for different things. And finally, I'll jump to our permitting and water quality unit. So they manage approximately 30 types of environmental permits of all types. They coordinate maintenance and construction of 20 wells, conduct compliance sampling at the water reclamation facilities, work with third-party entities like the Sonoran Institute, and engage with regulators to work in the best interest of the county on all types of issues like waters of the U.S., surface and aquifer water quality standards, permits, permit amendments. And right now we have it as a 5-person team, and that is led by Kimberly that I showed a picture of earlier, 1 hydrologist, and then a 3-person sampling team. I want to show a couple of pictures of some sampling. This is of staff collecting samples for PFAS at some of our facilities. Even though this isn't required in our permits yet, we perform sampling just to stay aware of the situation and be on top of it. Right now, our numbers are very good, or some among the lowest in Arizona. There we go. I wanted to highlight in this photo, you can see he's wearing a face mask and a lab coat, and he wasn't in the others. Well, he had to collect this sample from about that chest high influent box, and whenever you're lifting influent by your face, use a face guard. And here they're performing equipment blank. So they see, Matt's holding a beaker underneath the pole, and CJ is pouring water along the pole to help rinse off any contaminants that we may think that the pole itself could have introduced to the samples. Because with PFAS being everywhere and the limits being so low, you really need to take all precautions. Here's some photos of a well maintenance that we had performed just earlier this June. This is well SC-03R, which is located right next to the loop at the Tres Rios outfall. And this maintenance was to replace an undersized pump. And though I don't have any pictures of it included, you can see the truck with the big boom. Well, when we were inspecting the site and thinking about it beforehand, we had to get flood and NRPR involved because they had put all sorts of landscaping there. And it's hard to get a truck with a boom in the right spot. We thought we were going to have to close the loop in order to do that, which is extra hassle, and we would have had to get a permit from NRPR and deal with all that, but we just asked them to remove the landscaping right there so we could get in. And so you can see them on the left. Yeah, they're just getting in position. On the right, they just took the well seal off and they're lifting up all that PVC pipe. And again, on the left, I mean, there's pipe on the ground. There's some stood up. I think this was 160 feet of piping underneath, and there's the pump on the left. And then after they have everything removed and the pump removed, they bring up their CCTV and drop that down in the well just to check it out. And yep, this is at 118 feet. The water looks great. The slats look great. This is in great condition. Again, the pump just wasn't pumping well and was definitely undersized for what it needed to be. And then, of course, you know, the water level's at 118 feet. The pump itself sits another 60 or so feet underwater. And I wanted to bring this up, show this picture, and compare to a picture I showed last year of a well maintenance that we had done. It's at 230 feet, and you can't see anything. This is the before picture. The after was a little bit better, but it's just clogged up. And this was having different turbidity and other sorts of problems as we'd pump out. These are pictures from that last one that was SC-05R, and you can see just the corrosion. This is a metal pipe as opposed to this last one was PVC. You can see that corrosion on there. And as they're pulling it out, and this picture is, I mean, it's almost conical because it has so much more erosion on one side of it, but I wasn't able to get that all in one picture. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, the keep track of our recharge credits. This is from the latest effluent generation report. On the most bottom right, you can see that total we have 32,516, and we added 3,245 recharge credits last year. And on the right, you can see the location with yellow dots of our facilities. According to the Tucson Active Management Area information, these are the charts for 2021 and 22. There were approximately 3,000 acre-feet more credits added last year than in 2021. And that translates almost directly to there were approximately 3,000 acre-feet fewer credits that left the active management area at Trico Road. So we're always very aware of that number, because once it crosses that boundary and leaves the county, we don't get credit for it. So we want to minimize that number as possible. And it's hard to say that anything we did actively made that change, because there's only so much we can do for in-stream improvements in the waterway before it goes from a managed facility to a constructed facility. But we're always just very aware of that. I'll go back again here on the left. You can see Marana High Plains Effluent Recharge Project started in 2007, and since about 2014 has pretty much been maxed out at their facility limit at 600 acre feet. Well, we underwent a project last year. It's still in the works. So Marana High Plains is a constructed recharge facility that was constructed in 2001 and upgraded from a pilot permit in 2007 and was permitted for 600 acre feet per year of recharge. It has 4 recharge cells and 1 equalization basin, and it's fed via an oxbow channel diversion structure, and that oxbow channel refers to an old meander of the river that's no longer the primary flow of the river, but it's been now converted into the source of the water for the facility. It's in 2022, CREO began discussions with Flood, who operates and maintains it. So it's our water, it's RWRD water, but it's operated and maintained by Flood Control. And so we began discussions with them to have the permitted volume increased. Originally we had talked about 1,000 acre feet per year, but the data supported that we move it to 1,200 acre feet per year. So we are working on doubling the capacity of this facility. And of course, it requires amendments to 3 different types of permits: our aquifer protection permit, our underground storage facility permit, and our water storage permit. And it will allow for some extra water that RWRD currently delivers to the Lower Santa Cruz Managed Recharge Project. So once you account for all the losses, we deliver 427.58 acre feet for last year. That we lost how much of it at the boundary to Trico Road. So now we'll be able to put it in the Marana High Plains project, and that will all be given 100% credit, and it will account. We'll have fewer losses next year once we look at that. And we'll also have some extra capacity after that. You can do the math. 600 plus 427 means that for last year we would have had about 175 acre feet of capacity remaining, and we're working with some other water providers in the area who also contribute to the Santa Cruz just to make sure that we fill all that capacity so that we use all 1,200. Just to show a picture of where it is, here's a picture of Greater Tucson area. In the upper left, you can see that red box. And I'll zoom in, and right in the middle of the screen now, and there it is. So you can see the natural flow of the river is on the top up there. And if I go back a picture, you can see that bottom channel that kind of takes that slow 90-degree turn to head directly north. That's what feeds Marana High Plains. You can see the 4 basins and the equalization basin. And then an update on our progress at Roger Road. So we have we've been working on a targeted brownfields work at Roger Road. As far as a little background, it was operated from the early 1950s until 2014. And there's 54 acres of land, and a lot of the infrastructure remains in place. So in 2014, it was, kind of picked up and left. If you go there now, it looks a little apocalyptic almost. If you go inside some of the buildings, there's still notices posted on the cork boards. Like, maybe a safety notice or a high heat notice, and it's from a decade ago. So you walk in and like, whoa. But there's a lot of also just asphalt, cement, pipes, buildings, concrete. That stuff is expensive to demo. So for very valid reasons of well, where do you get the money from and how do you spend to do it? It's kind of been left there for now. But beginning in 2022, we started a targeted brownfields assessment with EPA and ADEQ, where this was free technical assistance. It included a phase 1 and phase 2 environmental site assessment. They generated this nice fact sheet on the left. We were working with EPA as ADEQ as our sponsor. It becomes interesting when we are the responsible party. The program does not necessarily want to just provide money for, not really us, but I will say polluters to clean up. It's not the responsibility of EPA to clean up other people's messes, but the things we were concerned with were lead-based paint and asbestos-containing material. Excuse me. When the facility was built, those things were great. Asbestos was better than sliced bread. So when they did the targeted brownfields assessment, they included soil sampling, soil gas sampling, building materials inspection, and they did discover lead-based paint and asbestos-containing material. No surprise there. And they also provided a cost estimate for either complete removal of the material or sealing it in place. I guess jumping back, it was approximately $600,000 for removal of the lead-based paint and the asbestos-containing materials. On March 7th, 2023, we requested assistance from ADEQ through the state response grant for cleanup, and we're still working with them and discussing on how best to go about that. And that will only deal with the hazardous material. So again, $600,000 for just the lead-based paint and the asbestos-containing material. And then we're also using the land revitalization program for additional technical assistance through EPA. That's through a company called Vida Nuova, and that will evaluate and investigate the possibility of reusing existing infrastructure. So if some of these concrete buildings or chlorine contact chambers or something could be reused, it will ideally lower the demo cost of the facility. The nice part about the state response grant for cleanup, if we can work with them and get them to contribute the lion's share or all of that 600,000, that once the hazardous materials have been addressed by certified specialists and removed in a safe manner, then any remaining demo could theoretically be performed by anyone. So it is really a priority to get those out. There we go. And then finally, I will show some photos from our contributions in the river. The Living River Report, which I'm sure everybody is familiar with, uses a lot of the information from the lab, and our water quality team is out there quite regularly. There's Matthew getting depth of the river on the right. A beautiful picture just of a tree canopies over the water. Courtney in there, you know, well past knee deep. Just really healthy looking water. And I have to show some pictures of the ecological diversity that we see. Here's a pair of either great egrets or great white herons. I can't quite tell from here, but I've narrowed it down to those two. Picture is of a spiny soft-shell turtle. And they are tucked away as a Mojave rattlesnake. And here's a picture of a diamondback. It's a video. Staff are a little too close for my comfort. Oh, I guess we have audio. Yeah, thankfully there's no strike, or they turned the camera off before. Here's some bullfrogs. You kind of see in there though. They hop away pretty quickly. This is a video of a breeding pair of horned owls. So the other one is outside of this frame. It's just sitting there looking around, and well, those are quite large. And of course, you know how much Scott loves the fish. So I had to show some videos of the fish. Here's a big carp just checking out the samplers and just swimming right by. And here's a whole group of them, perhaps a dozen or so.
I think that
And here's a catfish that let whoever was taking the video just walk right up. All right, and then finally our hometown favorite. Here's a couple bobcats. This is in our little courtyard here, and we would see quite a few over the years. I think unfortunately this mama passed away, but within a few days, another bobcat had moved in. So hopefully she's courageous enough to stop by and see us. So, whew, thank you.
Thank you very much, Max. That was extremely informative. That was very, very good. Does anybody have any additional questions that they would like of Max? I have Kimberly. You have a question for Max.
I don't think staff is allowed to interact in a advisory committee, so I'm going to ask that not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for the program. Yeah.
I'm curious about the groundwater levels under the Marana facility.
They're going up?
Is it fairly deep there, or are they shallow? I understand that there's some.
So in order to get the permit through there, I want to say they're around 160 feet. In order to get the permit through, we actually had to get some well depth alert levels at the Tangerine landfill adjusted. Those alert levels were like 50 feet below the landfill, which is crazy. Most commonly it's 5 or 10 feet. So we had to get some of those changed because water levels are coming up, and in order to fit any more water within recharge in the Vados zone, we had to get them adjusted. But yeah, they're steadily increasing. I have a table.
I'm just curious for exactly that reason, because if you're doubling your recharge, you're going to be impacting the groundwater.
The thing about ours though is going from 600 to 1200 is that's drops in the bucket compared to some of the Colorado River projects that are tens of thousands of acre feet. And what's going to happen to those if the Colorado, if Arizona's taking cuts, is that water not going to come down here for recharge? And that's a different issue for ADWR to figure out. We can't get a permit based on that unknown. But the moral of it is, if we set a limit and we are putting more water in and we hit an alert level, well, then we stop putting water in. And so it's still protective of groundwater, so it doesn't come up too high.
Great, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Max. That was extremely informative. I'm sorry we can't go any further into that. Eric said we're not going to get into that area. Next on the agenda is the election of the committee officers. That's going to be handled by Jackson. Jackson, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, that time of year to pick a chair and a vice chair, or I think that's what we call them, chair and vice chair. And right at the moment, we have two people that have been nominated and or volunteered, and that's Claire Zucker and Scott Oldendorf. And so just before I move into the process, is there any other nominees, anyone else that we need to consider or include? Okay, hearing none. This is where the process has different options. Historically, when we've had the same people as chair and vice chair, we have gone through and swapped roles, and every year they swap back and forth until there's more interested candidates, and then we go through a different process. We also can go through a vote, individually. We can have them turn their backs to the camera or have you send an email or, whatever you want to do. There's many options, but two good people that have both been in these capacities before. Scott, I think you've been the chair for the last 2 years. Is that correct?
I think so, yes.
2 years. And Claire, you served as a chair quite a few years ago, and you're the vice chair. Never served as a chair before. Okay. So is there any preference from the committee on how you'd like to handle it? And we'll go through from there, but I just want to make sure if anybody has any comments or questions or recommendations, please let us know now. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, my question is, what is the preference of the nominees? Does one prefer to be chair and another one prefer to be vice chair? Is there any preference there? And I'd say just go along with what they prefer.
Yeah, I think they were both nominated for chair. So that's kind of the position we're sorting out, who will be the chair next year or, going forward, and who will be the vice chair. Anyone else? All right, let me just ask either of them if they have any words, anything they wanted to say or anything. Scott, you first, you have anything?
Well, I thank you for the honor of letting me be your chair for the past year. And I think I've been there for 2 years. I came from Wastewater here at the treatment division and the Department of Purchasing as a buyer here. I've been I've been here since 2007. I enjoyed it. And that's why I still continue to volunteer, because I always want to stay involved with wastewater because that's where I feel like I'm at home. I know a lot of the people here. I know how things kind of operate and who works with everybody. And it's just my way in my retirement that I like to give back, to keep participating, keep volunteering, and truly the chair is nothing but a traffic cop of just running the meeting and keeping it moving smoothly. And I'd like to keep it tight so we can get everybody home and on to their other jobs. So if I could be honored again for a third term, I would be greatly appreciated. Claire Zucker, it's been a pleasure to work with. She's covered me for when I've been on vacation, because I am retired and I'm still smiling. So I would like to continue as chair for a third. And I want to continue working closely with Claire. She's a great person to have on the team.
Okay, thanks. Claire, did you have anything you wanted to say at all?
I enjoy this committee and I enjoy thought. I'm fine with whichever way it goes.
Hey, we can't hear Claire. I'm sorry.
Project,
Or be loud.
or maybe come
Have
here.
a chair.
Yeah, I can't hear either.
The owl was over here to.
Hi, everyone. I'm fine with whatever happens. I've very much enjoyed working with Scott here. I enjoy this committee. It's been great. I actually would really enjoy being in the chair position because I would like to talk to Jackson and the crew about our future agenda items and just be more engaged with this committee. That would be great. Besides that, I am Sharon Bronson's appointee. Many of you know, I did Section 208 planning for many years. And so I guess the thing I really enjoy about this committee and about this group is really looking at the bigger picture for wastewater and how it interacts with the community, how the planning for the facilities works, how the permitting works. So all of those things are really fascinating to me, and I very much appreciate being part of the group. So I'm fine with whatever happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
And
Okay.
I forgot to mention, I'm just a representative, Steve Foley of Rex Scott.
All right, so I'm gonna recommend, hopefully you guys will agree, but, since this role, leads this whole committee, and we only, besides the two that are here, there's 5 of you that could vote. How about if we just do an offline poll with the other members as well? If, we'll have Jeanette get in touch with each one of you individually and ask you to send her an email telling who's chair, who's vice chair from your perspective. We'll tally them up and we'll let you all know the results, the outcome of that. Will that work for you guys? That way everybody gets their participation.
It works for me.
Okay. Rob?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, do I need to make a motion to that effect?
Yeah, probably so.
Okay, I move that we do an email poll and we send it to Jeanette and let her know our preferences.
I will second Armando.
All in
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Aye.
And any abstains? Okay, so moved. The motion passes.
Okay, we'll reach out to each committee member and pose that question, and we'll let you know the outcome. But thank you both very much for the willingness, and you're both valued members of this committee, and may the best man win. Oh, that's not gender specific. All right, thank you. Scott, you want to keep going now?
Okay, next on the agenda is the financial subcommittee with Matt. Matt, it's all yours.
That's not on.
Okay, do we have any financial subcommittee report from another person?
No.
We didn't meet.
Okay, very good. Next on the agenda is the CIP subcommittee with Asia. Asia, it's all yours.
Hi, everyone. The CIP subcommittee has identified July 27th from 1 to 3 as our next time to get together and meet. I don't think we have that on our calendars yet, but Jeanette, you'll be sending something out. Is that right?
Yes.
To have the right date. Okay, so confirming that's our date and time, and we will have a virtual meeting. So I don't have anything else to report.
Okay, very good. Thank you. July 27th is the next CIP subcommittee meeting. Next on the agenda is the fiscal year 22-23 expense and revenue summary with Isai.
Good morning, everyone. I'll share my screen and we'll go through our summary. Excellent. Here we go. Our expense summary as of May 31st. Our total expenses, adopted budget is 91.4 million. As of May 31st, we have spent 81.1 million. Our projection is 91.7 million, giving us a variance of 276,000. Scroll down a little bit down. We have our total expenses, including contra, depreciation, and debt services. Adopted budget is 170.9 million. And our expenses as of May 31st was 150.1 million, with a projection of having $173 million, giving us a variance of $2 million. We scroll down a little bit further down to our revenue. Our adopted budget 193.6. As of May 31st, 170.1 for revenue, and we're projecting 193.2 million as well, giving us a negative variance of $344,000. And that's our expense revenue summary for period 11, May 31st. Any questions, concerns?
Does anybody have any additional questions for Isai? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Isai. We appreciate that report. Next on the agenda is CWAC, Citizen Water Advisory Committee, with Allison.
Allison's not on the line, but she did forward her notes from the meeting, which I forwarded to everybody a couple of days ago.
Okay, so did everybody get those notes? Okay, very good. Any questions from the notes being passed on to you? Okay, hearing no additional questions for CWAC. Next on the agenda is future agenda items. Do I have any future agenda items? Okay, hearing none. Next to the agenda is call to the audience. Anybody have any call to the audience questions? Okay. Just a moment, everyone.
Well, just for the future agenda item will be the report out on the election.
Okay.
Yes,
so future agenda item will be the report on the election. The next meeting, we're going to be closed for July. There will be no meeting in July 27th. So the next meeting will be August 24. That's a Thursday. And let's see, do I have a motion for adjournment?
Did you do another call to the audience, the final call to the audience?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
we were talking.
Yes, you were. That's why I kind of paused it all.
Okay.
Okay. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
I move we adjourn.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Rob, thank you, sir. All in favor, say aye.
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 Do I have any nays? Noes? Any abstains? Okay, everybody, we're out of here at 9:38. Thank you very much. See you all in 2 months on August 27 or 24, August 24.
Have a safe
Thank you very
4th of
much.
July.
Yeah.
Same to you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.